So standing by in Latvia with more on all of this, we want to bring in our CBS News reporter, Mary Ilyushina. Mary, thanks so much for joining us. So this was a highly anticipated speech from President Putin. We didn't know what he was going to say, but there was no formal declaration of war on Ukraine, which was part of the speculation. A big focus on the West in his speech. What were some of the main points that stuck out to you?
Good morning, Anne-Marie. I think the point that you mentioned on the top of the show, that he did not proclaim any kind of victory, is probably the most important here, because the speech itself was very sort of timid and kind of low stakes. He did not proclaim Mariupol, which is the besieged city, key port city in eastern Ukraine, as a victory, because a lot of analysts have been predicting that this is something he can present to Russian people as the result of his denazification, because the Azov battalion that the Russian propaganda has been using as one of the pretexts to support their weird claim about Nazis in Ukraine is very much present in Mariupol, but he did not do that. He also acknowledged that Russian army is losing people there. He said that there are casualties and there are tragedy, and that the Russian government is seeking to support the children of soldiers who died or were injured in the battlefield, and that he signed a decree. So this is a very sort of public appeal that Russia has the back of these soldiers and the future of their children as secure. So these are some of the things that we didn't really expect, and he did not proclaim, as you said, official war in Ukraine, and he did not, also call for general mobilization, which was something that a lot of Russian, young, eligible Russians have feared.
So he also didn't give any sort of context or indication of what's next for the invasion. Why might that be?
I think Putin has basically limited his speeches to sort of the geopolitical justifications and sort of the traditional justifications behind the invasion, and left sort of the gruesome details of the military plans to his generals. The only thing that he said recently about sort of what the Russian military should do in Ukraine is stop the attack on Azovstal, which is the last stronghold in Mariupol, where a lot of Ukrainian troops are still they're still there. They're still present there and are trying to fight. And he mainly, in this speech and before the invasion itself, he's been saying, that the West is attacking us and that we are trying to respond, and that we just trying to win against Nazis one more time. And this is sort of his main line that he's been sort of promoting throughout these weeks.
We were sort of warned that, perhaps during the parades, we wouldn't see the same level of military hardware as was on display other times, partially because it's being used in Ukraine or it's already been destroyed. Is Russia equipped enough to step up attacks on Ukraine following this celebration?
Well, Russia has definitely refocused its military goals in Ukraine, because they have not been able to take Kyiv, not been able to take a lot of crucial cities they intended to take at the beginning of invasion, and they assumed that it would be really easy for them to do so. So they've scaled back to eastern Ukraine. Now they're saying they also want land passage in southern Ukraine to sort of make Ukraine landlocked and secure a land path towards Crimea, which they annexed in 2014. But at the same time, we shouldn't underestimate that Russia has been putting a lot of effort to revamp its military in the past years, and they're also focused on producing en masse military equipment, which is why Ukraine is calling for more sophisticated equipment from the West and is now getting more and more of this. And to your point about that we've seen less equipment this time, it's certainly interesting that, it's about 130 vehicles that were paraded today. Compared to last year, it was, last year is around 190, and it was less than double than in 2020, which was a big anniversary, was 75 years, but still the scale is definitely smaller. And the vehicles that we have not seen today in this parade are actually the ones that are used actively in battlefield right now, like some tanks and some, artillery systems. All these things were absent.
Really interesting. Mary, thank you very much.
Thank you.